Good morning, my fellow Zenites. Did you check your Paulsen wallet balance with your coffee this morning? You know, with the events that have happened over the last week, or even over the last few months, actually, it's little wonder that people are losing faith in cryptocurrency. And the main problem is that the majority of the people get their news from mainstream media, even today. Of course, there are those that watch YouTube and those that consume their information from Twitter. Both of those mediums are going to give you real problems in defining what is the truth. Because the artificial intelligence, as we're calling them, I don't think there's any intelligence involved, but the data set analysis that's involved, what they do is whenever you interact with a piece of news, whatever it happens to be, the bias and the content is then repeatedly shown to you, which enforces your views and keeps you in your own echo chamber. And that may be very, very far from the overall truth. Look, the spotlight has to be this week, the scrutiny has to be this week on the so-called YouTube financial gurus who have been shilling you nonsense for basically years. What actually happened this week? We have basically a historical timeline of the collapse of Terra Luna, the collapse of 3AC, the collapse of FTX, and now the possible collapse of Genesis Trading and maybe even Barry Silvert's entire coin group. Time will only tell. But here is something very interesting. If you look at what's being described as cryptocurrency on the mainstream media, they make no distinction between centralized finance and decentralized finance. And that is one of the biggest things that you have to understand. There is a world of difference. Bitcoin was invented 14 years ago to solve the problem of centralized finance. It was intended as a peer-to-peer, trustless system, censorship resistant, and a network that you could use without having to trust a third party. So fast forward to today, and where are we? Well, Bitcoin is 14-year-old technology. It was a fantastic protocol when it was designed, but along came Vitalik Buterin with Ethereum. And from that day forward, nearly 8 years later now, we have had the ability to program money. And this is very, very, very important to understand. DeFi is supposed to be trustless. You don't involve any other third party in your transactions. That's why it's called trustless. It's just you interacting with computer code. It's also supposed to be permissionless, which means that nobody can stop you from taking any action you wish with your own tokens. That is the premise and promise of DeFi. What has happened over the last little while has affected centralized finance, which is an entirely different animal to DeFi. So let's make this distinction very, very, very clear. Centralized finance needs to go. It needs to be heavily regulated, and we need to just forge on with a new economy that is being built in the decentralized finance world. Leading protocols such as PulseSen are enabling people to build and enjoy a new economy, a new way of economic freedom that cannot be controlled by any central entity, which is absolutely key. It cannot be stopped. Centralized finance, on the other hand, is just traditional finance using the blockchain. The trust element is still with a third party. Look, I'll give you an example of what is happening in the world today. Let's take two of the most famous stock picker gurus that there are out there in the traditional finance world at the moment. We'll make a comparison. The first one is a traditionalist, and they pick stocks based on old-fashioned value system. The second one is the new kid on the block, born in Los Angeles, and prefers to pick stocks that are growth and technology related. Of course, I'm talking about the famous Warren Buffett and, of course, Cathie Wood of ARK Investments. Now, they have two very different investment styles, And their two funds, although ARK Investments is minuscule compared to the size of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway fund. The fund performance, though, up until very, very recently, had performed very, very similarly. But we began to see a huge divergence this year, in around about May this year, with regard to the performance of Cathie Wood's ARK Investment Fund. Now, why is that? Well, it's the style of investment that we are talking about. You see, one of the real strengths of Berkshire Hathaway is built around Warren's ideal investment strategy. And that is simply time and compound interest. He looks for value growth in yield. There is real money coming out of it at the end of the day. Cathie Woods, on the other hand, has taken an entirely different view and concentrates on trying to find technology stocks that have potential for excessive growth. Now, the thing about that, that may be fantastic for some, and it worked very well whilst we were in a low interest environment and whilst governments around the world continue to print money. Well, guess what? The tables have changed dramatically. And I've always said growth is great, but show me the money. I can't pay my bills just because my company stock grew in value. I didn't get it. I need yield. I need yield into my bank account to actually pay my bills, just like everybody else. That's what we want from investment. We want yield on our investments. And of course, Warren Buffett's time and compound interest has been proven yet again through all market conditions to be the enduring strategy. Look, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Now, since 2008, where we had the most recent financial Armageddon, Bitcoin stepped in to possibly solve that. That was the whole point of Bitcoin. Now, fast forward 14 years later, it hasn't lived up to that promise. But Vitalik Buterin's Ethereum blockchain has. And of course, with protocols such as PulseZen, which build on the idea of programmable money, which is what Vitalik allowed us all to do with the advent of the EVM. PulseZen is very simply this. It's programmable money, and we are harnessing and utilizing the power of compound interest, Warren Buffett's favorite investment strategy. But for us, it's compounding rewards on steroids because of this factor. You own a certain percentage of the total supply of PulseZen in your wallet, self-custody, no third party involved. It's trustless, it's just you and the code. A transaction takes place. That can be a buy, a sell, or a transfer between wallets. And this is what happens. You are going to see a deduction made, a pay it forward deduction of 2%. And that 2% goes into a pool. The sole purpose of that pool is to redistribute the wealth. You see, there is no scarcity of wealth. It just needs a better redistribution system. And what happens is you get your percentage of the pool depending on the percentage of the total supply that you hold in your wallet at the time of that transaction. And for example, you may have 1,000,000 PZen. After one transaction, you now have 1,250,000 PZen. The very next transaction, that means that the percentage of the total supply that you own for the next transaction went up. So therefore, you get more of the 2% pool. But there's even more. You see, PulseZen is deflationary. After every transaction, a certain portion of the tokens are destroyed, gone forever, which makes PulseZen deflationary. And then, of course, there is the third aspect in this rotten world that we have. We have a core charity wallet. And for every transaction, you all agree with the code to donate a certain amount to this charity wallet. The charity wallet will be distributed to charities voted on by the DAO later on. So not only are we living in a new paradigm, not only are we creating a new economy, it's a fairer, more equitable economy that is being built on the back of DeFi. DeFi is the way forward. What we have seen this week in CeFi is the death of CeFi, which going forward for everybody involved in decentralized finance is a harbinger of a colossal amount of economic energy, which is going to pour into this space. Even Cathie Woods, in an interview this week, stated quite clearly that she is extremely bullish in decentralized finance going forward. Anyway, more in-depth conversation this afternoon in the live broadcast. Do join me then. It'll be posted very, very soon. I'm Conrad Zen, former Bitcoin Foundation member and evangelist for Paulsen. And who do we have here this morning to join us? We have Tristan. I know you're trying to promote PZM, but I miss when you spoke so passionately about Hex. Why? I'm the biggest holder of Hex that you probably ever know, Tristan, and you have to understand that the world moves on. We're in a different world right now. Nothing wrong with Hex, but Pulse may be a better option for more people. And I still have my bags of Hex. Mr. Profit 74, Mr. Profit 74, is there a giveaway today? No, you were told there is no giveaway. Please subscribe and watch my broadcast, and then you will be able to know exactly what's going on. So do that now. Look, subscribe, hit the notify bell. This is where you're going to find the truth about DeFi. More to come this afternoon. Thank you so much for listening to my short coffee morning rant. And I look forward to talking to you a little bit more in depth this afternoon as we continue to broadcast the truth that is in DeFi and why you need to be involved in this new economy. Conrad Zen, Salanjivar. See you later on this afternoon.